Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are guests and visitors today, I have been the chairman of this small but very interesting group, the British Business Group. We started this in 2010-11, and this is our 104th meeting. If it weren't for the COVID-19, we had intended to host the 100th meeting. Uh, you know, probably many organizations, including our Madras Chamber, which has been around for many, many years, who probably have had a larger number of meetings, but almost without fail, we've continued to host these meetings and now we're doing it on Zoom. So, welcome to the 104th meeting, all guests and friends and others. I hope you will enjoy this. I usually speak uh, to all of you on things that are happening both in the group as well as on things that I do. I wanted to today tell you about a chap called W.V. Raman. Those of you who are in the cricket club, Captain Ram and others, know him quite well. He has played for Tamil Nadu and he's played for India, I think. And he was the coach for Bengal, and then he has become the successful coach for the Indian women's cricket team and taken them to great success. Uh, he's just written a very interesting book, or jointly with one of his friends, The Winning Sixer. The Winning Sixer. And it's about leadership lessons from cricket. And I'll just tell you a few things because I know that he talks about five different things that he's always, five different things that he's always spoken about. It's about the credibility, clarity, connect, control, and conviction. And when he talks about something like credibility, he talks about leaders should not have just their own ideas or their own set of rules separate from the one from the team. They must have just one set of rules. He talks about clarity, and the example he gives is that of Pataudi says, I only lost my sight, not my vision. So, like that, you'll find quite a few interesting things in this book, and I hope you will find time to be able to go through it. Important as you are, and therefore, leadership is something which many people take for granted, and you think that you can become a leader. You can become a leader just like that. I think it takes a lot of observation, as you'll see from what W.V. Raman writes. It's things that put you into situations. Each time it's different, and that is what leadership is all about. Uh, I also want to tell you about another writer whom all of you have heard of. He's very successful. Jeffrey Archer has written a new book this year. It's called Hidden in Plain Sight. And I'm holding it up just behind me so that you can see it. Uh, it's Jeffrey
We
Archer.
can't see you properly.
You can't see me? You
We
don't
can't see you
need
properly.
to, you don't
No,
need to see me, Captain. You can
no.
hear me. Uh,
Even the
uh,
book also I can't see. What you're
you can't
showing.
see the book. I'm showing it. I'm going to hold it up. Is
No,
that all right?
no,
Okay, you'll
no,
find
no,
it
no.
in.
There's a yeah. Now
Anyway,
it's slightly.
the title of the book is Hidden in Plain Sight by Jeffrey Archer. Okay. No, the reason is actually the power has gone out of my building. So I'm sitting actually in a bit of the dark. And Silamberson is flashing some light over me so that, yeah, so that I may be seen on camera. So that's a couple of books for you. But the third thing I wanted to tell you, important one, is that Britain is going through another lockdown
Lockdown.
till the second, and you'll hear more about it from Paul Dryden. And the important bit of message from number 10 is that the guy who was the big advisor to Boris Johnson, Cummings, has now been taken out of 10 Downing Street. Uh, Probably a good thing because my own feelings have always been that after 43 years in the EU, you cannot just walk out of a situation. It's pretty much like a divorce, but at the same time, when you have a lot of relationships, as some of you know, I've been through a couple of marriages, a couple of divorces, and you can't just say, boo, go to hell to your ex wife when you have children. So, just like that, after 43 years in the EU, Britain can't just walk out just like that. And I think we are fortunate in having this German lady who is pretty moderate, pretty sensible, and she wants to see how she can work with Britain. I'm talking about the president of the EU, Ursula von der Leyen. She is making big efforts in seeing she's making big efforts in seeing that Britain can find a way to some sort of resolution. And I think with very little time left now, up to 31st of December, we should look to an amicable way of coming out of the EU. I know that Paul Dryden is going to speak about that, so I'll leave it there. Welcome to all of you. Happy to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. As Christy ends, I just want to mention in passing that he will be undertaking a passage to the UK. You know, it used to be the other way around, passage to India. So it will be a passage to UK, end of first week of December. Long awaited because he couldn't do it earlier. So we wish him well when he goes to the UK in December and has a memorable Christmas and New Year. Thank you, Christy. Now, may I now invite Paul Dryden, Deputy Head of Mission at the BDHC Chennai. Paul has been a regular supporter, attendee of our sessions. Paul, can you now come online, talk to us?
Certainly. Can you hear me now? Is that all right?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Welcome, and thank you for the welcome for the 104th meeting with BBG. Just I'd like to correct Christy on something, that the UK is not in lockdown. England is in lockdown. Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland are on different phases of lockdown, and it depends on where you actually are in the three other countries of how restricted it is. But he is correct to say that England is in lockdown to the 2nd of December. So if you are traveling over Christmas time, I would suggest that you keep looking at what the situation is with quarantine. It's still 14 days upon arrival. I did it in September and it was fairly straightforward. But coming back to Tamil Nadu, there was quite a few forms and I had to get a COVID test before I arrived back, but it worked very, very well. As Christy said, we are now in the last few days of negotiation with the EU. We've already had Brexit, as in we have left, but the transition period is going to be ending on the 31st of December. And so we're sort of fingers crossed that we will get the right deal for the UK, which will hopefully mean that there will be smooth transition of goods and services between the UK and the EU. I wouldn't want to predict how it's going, but from the history of certainly me being in the office for 30 years, these things are always at the last moment. So if they say it's going to happen on Wednesday and it's the last day it's going to be done, I suspect that there'll be some kind of announcement on the Thursday or something like that, if it's not been done beforehand. it really is always is the same. There's always an answer right at the end. So it's a big thing for the UK, but it's also a big thing for the EU, because we're one of the biggest customers of the EU. In fact, there's more BMWs bought in Britain than the rest of the EU in the country outside of Germany. So that kind of stuff. So it's in their interest to get it right also. But it has been quite fraught, as you can imagine. So the three things, I think there's four things I was going to mention. First, we don't have a High Commissioner yet in Delhi. I am told that we do have one appointed internally, but we're going through the procedures with the Indian government. And so probably in next month's BBG, I should be able to announce who the new High Commissioner is going to be. For those who are not aware, we had one, and he arrived after only about 10 weeks, and then he returned back to the UK because he became our permanent secretary for the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, as it's called now, and so he wasn't here very long, which was a shame, because he was just about to get into the work that he was dealing with, and he was going to be doing a virtual tour to Tamil Nadu. So whoever is going to be picked will probably know very, very, very shortly, probably in the next month. A couple of days ago, the Prime Minister made quite a big statement on green energy. I know in the last few months we have been talking a lot about green energy here in BBG, and how it's going to be used here in India, and especially in South India. Well, in the UK, yeah, a couple of days back, or was it yesterday? I can't remember. I think it was 2 days back. That he's brought forward, the Prime Minister Johnson has brought forward that diesel and petrol cars will no longer be sold in the UK by the end of 2030. I mean, that's very, very ambitious. The move towards EV vehicles is on. So not just EV vehicles, it's all the charging and all the infrastructure. So it's a huge, huge commitment. And it was 2040. He did bring it down to 2035. He's done it again. He said 2030. Second to that, he announced that he would like all houses and businesses in the UK, so that's basically everything, to be powered by renewables, especially offshore wind, by 2030. Again, that is a massive, massive commitment to going green in the UK. And he said that he would like the UK to be the Saudi Arabia of offshore wind. And we're all well on the way, actually, especially in Scotland. As many of you know, we were due to visit Dundee and Newcastle last year in June or July. No, it was June of last year, but of course of COVID, we've had to cancel. And we were going to be visiting some of the really, really good work that is going on in offshore wind, as well as renewable energy in those parts of the world. Indeed, as soon as COVID is over, it's safe to do so. We intend to travel to these places. So watch this space. But that's a massive, massive commitment by the government, and we hope that it will be rub off with the climate change conference 26, which is going to be held in Glasgow this time next year, and we hope that countries like India will follow suit. And last but not least, some good news in the last month concerning the vaccines. You've probably heard about Pfizer, you've heard about Moderna, and I think Sputnik, that's the Russian one. I won't be taking the Russian one, I can assure you, but the one that we're looking at, and I think everybody's been looking at, is a AstraZeneca's and Oxford University's vaccine. They haven't made their announcement yet. Well, to be honest, they have made a small announcement today to say that it's been very, very encouraging, the tests that they've been doing for older people, as in the 75 and above. And that was the key issue about how successful it was going to be, because the older you get, the less powerful the vaccine is. And they've just announced this afternoon that it has been very, very successful. Now, they haven't actually given numbers yet, but the CEO has come out and said that it's been very successful. So that's excellent news. Going on to that, the AstraZeneca vaccine is very different from the Pfizer one. It's probably a bit easier to distribute, because the Pfizer, as you probably heard, it has to be stored at -80 centigrade, which has got huge complications on transport, and it only lasts for 5 days once it's out and about. So it was delivered to the place. It only lasts 5 days, and it has to be administered twice. So once and then the second time in 3 weeks. It also costs about £29, excluding distribution. So it is quite expensive. Now compare that to the AstraZeneca. It can be stored between 3 and 8 degrees centigrade, so in a fridge, and it can last up to a month in the fridge. So that's much, much better. But it's also only administered once, and it costs £2.29 at cost price, compared to the 29 compared to the other one. I don't know about the Moderna or the other ones, but that's the two ones where we're sort of comparing with. In India, I think the idea is, if it works, I think this would be an easier one to administer. And in India, at the AstraZeneca base is in Bangalore, the headquarters in Bangalore, but they've given the Pune Serum Institute, obviously in Pune, they have the rights to administer or manufacture the AstraZeneca, if it's successful, of course, to Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and India. And at present, there is a 30 million dose capacity per month. Now, obviously, that's quite impressive, but with a population of 2 billion, plus Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, clearly it is good that you have other vaccine makers on the horizon. But the big question is, when will it be the announcement has been made? Now, as you know, the announcement was made with Pfizer just a few days ago. And they announced that it was going to be 90 to 95% proficient. And then Moderna came out and they said 95%. What AstraZeneca will do is that they will make the announcement of how proficient it is and if it's successful. Now, what I'm hearing is that it is successful, but I don't know the numbers, so I can't tell you. But if it is successful, and if it's in that rate, the 95%, on the same day they do that, they will also announce that it is safe and ready to be distributed. So that's the main difference from the Pfizer one. Because the Pfizer one and the Moderna one, they've made the announcement on proficiency, and then they will make an announcement that it's safe, and then they will make an announcement on when it's going to be distributed. I've been informed that once AstraZeneca make this sort of 3-point announcement, that the next day, basically, if it's good, then the machines at Pune will be on, and they will be able to start distributing and producing it and distributing it the next day. So obviously that is very, very good news. So let's fingers crossed and prayers for those who are producing it. It must be a nightmare for these scientists. But prayers for those who are doing this, because we are told that a decision will be made before Christmas. So that would be the best Christmas present ever, I believe. And so hopefully that will be announced very shortly. And that's it from the British Deputy High Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Your second half almost sounded like a medical digest report. Thank you. I mean, we don't have a person attending today with that background, but yes, so it's a mixed bag of hope on the one hand, a lot of work in progress, and way to go forward. So I think, if anything, you'll probably hear workable news at the start of next year. Thank you so much once again, Paul. I'm now going to ask Himani of our member company, Tech Informatics, whether she's ready to come online. Himani, are you there?
Yes, Vijay, I'm ready.
Yeah, so Himani is part of a company called Tech Informatics. They are an infrastructure services and consultants provider based in Bangalore. Her MD, she's the CEO of the company. Her MD, Mr. Shivadas, is also here with us. Himani comes from a sciences and engineering background. She started a career in human resource, but now is into the tech domain. So I now leave it to Himani to tell us all about her company. Thank you. All over to you.
Right. Thank you so much, Vijay. Good evening, everybody. Before I start with my presentation, may I ask Mr. Shivdas to just introduce himself and give a few words?
Oh my God. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Shivadas. I am not new to BBG. I have been attending a couple of meetings in Bangalore and Chennai. But my interaction with all of you is very little because we were not able to meet each other. Okay. It gives me and Himani a lot of pleasure to address you all. Of course, it is a great honor. Indeed, it's a great opportunity, and thanks to BBG team, Mr. Vijay and Mr. Kushi and all this for providing this wonderful opportunity. Himani, though she is a CEO, she is the PowerPoint one in the company, and she would take you around about high tech. In case you have any doubts or clarifications, please reach out either by email or by cell. We'll be only happy to respond. We are here today, even after 30 years, may not be in a very big way, but in the hearts of our hundreds of our customers, because we are very responsive and hold responsibility. Thanks, Himani. You can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Shivdas. So, good evening, everybody. Let me share you a small presentation. I just hope I don't bore you all, but maybe a bit of information will be shared about our services and how it can help our fellow being out there. All right, so we have audience from all different walk of life and domain over here. Let me quickly take you through and ask you a common question. What is the common thing that connects all the organization, or which all the organization has common in them? If I speak about any kind of domains, say retail and FMCG, or the pharma industries, the BFSI, publications, manufacturing of any kind, education, hospitality, healthcare, or any domain that we speak about. What is one common thing which every organization has? When I speak about an organization or a domain, it can be a small grocery shop to a big MNC manufacturing. Right. So something which connects, which is common in all the organization, is the IT infrastructure. Today, when we all are talking, sitting with our laptops and connected through a network, all these are part of your infrastructure, IT infrastructure. Let me help you understand what exactly is IT infrastructure. I'm sure all of you have a bit of information about IT infrastructure, but do you really know in depth what all consists of the IT infrastructure? The definition out here is simple, which you can always Google and find out what is IT infrastructure: hardware, software, network, and human resources. Let me make it much more simpler for you. Right, so now what you see in your screen is, in a nutshell, all these are the things which makes your IT infrastructure. When we speak about an organization where we have end users sitting using the laptop, desktop, printers, tablets, so that becomes a part of the IT infrastructure where you have the hardwares, you have the applications, you have the operating support. The servers that we speak about, let it be a physical server or the cloud infrastructure, which is so prevalent these days. We speak about networking, network cabling, and what we are doing right now, connected on a Zoom through network. So all these again are part of your infrastructure. Help desk, who basically takes the call and pass on the tickets to your engineers out there who can come and attend. The hardwares, the hardware can be the laptop, the motherboard, mouse, the RAM, the servers, anything. And AMC, the annual maintenance contract, which basically keeps your servers and the systems up and running. All these things, what you see here, it is the most simplest way which can help you to understand what is IT infrastructure. Right. Now, the audience who are here with us and the companies out there, so from different domain, your core job is basically the work that you're doing. When we speak about pharma, we were just listening about the vaccine being prepared by AstraZeneca or Pfizer. So their core job is basically to make the medicines. So IT support basically becomes a support. IT infrastructure becomes a support system for them. Isn't it worth that if you outsource your IT infrastructure? Well, if you outsource the IT infrastructure, what is the benefit that you will be getting? Aren't we listening about the cost cutting since the time pandemic has come in, but much before that? Yes, cost cutting. What would happen if you outsource IT infrastructure? You basically will significantly save on your labor cost, which your third party, who is basically managing your IT infrastructure, will take care of your administration, monitoring, and the management. And you can keep the headcount, which is the most expensive part in an organization, the manpower cost, into check, and you can slash down your payrolls. So, and you can basically focus on your core job. That is the key. Now, cost cutting saves money for you. This money is something that you would want to invest into your ongoing regular business and generate further more revenues. So because you have outsourced one of the most important support system to a third party, which saves your time, it saves your time, hence you can put your effort into your regular work, whereas the third party manages all your IT infrastructure. Well, of course, yes, you also will have the flexibility of and getting the modern technologies on your hand. It basically is the work of the third party who's coming in to bring in the best technology so that the efficiency of the resources is improved. Managed service, yeah. And the next part is the trained, experienced resources that you get. As managed services is a part and package of the outsourced IT infrastructure solutioning. So you basically get the access to the senior resources and the best of technology available. So the vendor will help you to increase the ROI from your IT investments. IT investment, we speak about the system that you bring in, the servers that you bring in, the network, the money that you're spending on the network. So how do you get the ROI? So the third party who comes in, the outsourced company, who basically understands the core of the infrastructure, will help you to get the best of your ROI. Now, when we just spoke about the outsourcing, there are multiple vendors out there, and here I present to you Tech Informatics, right? So as Mr. Shivdas just stated that we are into this industry from almost around 30 years. Let me quickly take you through an overview of my organization. We are into this industry from almost around 30 years with all the kind of compliances in place and also the ISO certified. So the processes becomes really important for an organization like us. Definitely, because of the 30 years of experience in the industry, it allows us, or we do carry with us the in-depth expertise. And today, currently, we are kind of supporting more than 50 clients across. And in all these years, we have supported more than hundreds of clients across. Today, we have around 1,000 employees with us pan-India in both tier 1, 2, and 3 cities. If I could just give you an assumption figure, we should be supporting around 1 lakh of end users who are using the laptops, desktop printers and all, and more than 1.5 lakh of assets are being supported pan-India wise. So when we speak about 30 years of association, we have been very closely working with companies like IBM. They are the OEMs, IBM, Lenovo, HP, TCS, Wipro, Panasonic. So whatever I just explained to you about IT infrastructure, what consists of IT infrastructure? So we are giving all kinds of such services to all these OEMs. It can be either an on-call support where it is only per call basis that we attend, or it can be managing a complete bigger infrastructure, a complete organization, like for example, Airtel. The complete IT infrastructure of Airtel was being managed by us. Today, we speak about a textile industry, Wellspun, which is spread across pan-India, and we are kind of supporting such kind of industries. The OEMs which I showed you, we are working with such OEMs and the association with the clients, direct and through our OEMs as well. These are few of the clients which I am showing you here. The list is endless. The list is pretty big. I couldn't capture all the names over here. Some of the names which I'm showing you here. This definitely gives you an idea that our experience in all kind of domains is there. We can see some of the companies into the advertising, into BFSI, into the pharma manufacturing, into the automobile or organizations, FMCGs and retails as well. Let me also take you through the capabilities and offering that high-tech informatics brings to your table. Managed services. I just spoke to you about Airtel, for example, or Wellspun, for example, with thousands and thousands of employees spread across pan-India. Such kind of customers, when they come to us, we set up their complete IT help desk and have resources on the field, on the ground to attend to any of your infrastructure queries on the laptop, desktop, servers, and the network. So that basically makes your managed services. This is for the understanding of any layman who would not know what is managed services. Data center. Data center is something which everybody definitely is aware of these days with the physical data center, huge data centers available, or the cloud infrastructure that people have been speaking about. So our capabilities have, we can support both. Maybe it may be the physical or the cloud infrastructure from the scratch till the operational part of it. Real-time ticketing tools. This is something which is very interesting to know of. I can just give an example of the food delivery apps, maybe Swiggy, Zomato that we are using. From the time we order the food till the time it is delivered, you can actually track everything in real time. This is something which has with more of its technical advantage within our tool. So this is something we have an inbuilt, which I'll explain a little bit more as I go ahead. Network services, both active, passive, from the cabling to the monitoring, setting up the NOC center, or the resourcing part of it. The network services also we have the capabilities. I spoke to you about the AMC a bit earlier, and remote service desk and the work from home setup. These COVID days, the pandemic time, something which everybody has been talking about is a remote service desk, work from home. So we are there who can help you out if you need any kind of support in setting up a work from home setup. All right. I quickly explain you about a little bit about data center capabilities offering, because there's something very interesting to know of. When we speak about the data center being constructed from the scratch, when it's a greenfield project, a building has to be done, and then the entire cabling, structuring has to be done. The architecture has to be designed. So we come into picture. We do not do the building work, but yes, we can design. We do designing of the data center. We do the cabling part of it. We can procure the hardware for you. We can do the implementation part of it, and as well, we can have the manpower who can run the complete data center for you. I was talking to you about our in-house product, High Care. It is called as the High Care or the High Care call management system. The calls are basically assigned from the central server to the engineers on the ground, and this has been made on the AI model, the artificial intelligence, what we call as, and the calls get allocated to the engineers. And in case if the engineer is not available, it will automatically go into the other one. This is a very one of the smallest feature which I'm telling you. The product is pretty big. It needs almost an hour to explain. If anybody is interested, we can talk to you about it separately. You can just think over about any kind of say Uber app or any kind of say, Swiggy app. So you can just relate to it, and this is how the our complete the in-house real-time ticketing tool works. So why high-tech informatics? Why do we have that added advantage? One, we are into the system from almost 30 years, working with multiple clients across pan India from all different kind of domains. Um, we have been considered as a preferred partners with most of our OEMs. The reason being technical skills, yes, and also the extra mile effort that we put. I can always give an example of the support that we gave during the COVID time. The work from home setup, which was being done for our 50 odd clients, our team has worked day in day out 24/7 to set it up, and a lot of appreciations have come over. Also, when we speak about the on-call support, where a lot of vendors backed out, our engineers did not shy away from traveling around 250 kilometers on two-wheeler and attend the call. It's just to keep one of the hospitals up and running, which was supporting the COVID patients. So yeah, so that is why probably we are the preferred partners out there, and hence the clientele list that I just showed to you. This is how we are present across. We have our head office in Chennai. Mr. Shivdas operates from Chennai. I am operating from Bangalore, and the presence that you see here, the headcount, this is how we are spread across. Um, we even have a presence in Jammu and Sikkim as well. If what you can see on the map, the part of India where you do not see the headcounts mapped are the places where our footprint is available. We attend the calls over here on call basis. So we do have presence, but not as a regular employees. And as an organization, of course, you need to have some corporate social responsibility. We do try to do whatever best we can. NGO calls comes in to us for the servers or for the laptop supports and all, and we do take it up. And we have also have been trying to fund some of the education of underprivileged children, and we have good access of the refurbished laptops, so we kind of keep on giving it to an advantage of the privileged students out there. So this was it. Thank you so much about our organization. And I hope I could give you some information about it. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Himani. Thank you. We're running out of time, but thanks all the same. Just want to mention very quickly in passing that Shivdas, the promoter of your company, actually started working for ICL of UK. All right. ICL of UK was a huge entity, no more, probably acquired by Fujitsu. Just wanted to mention that in passing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we go to the next part of the segment where we invite our guest speaker. May I request Hemant? Hemant, are you there? Hemant? To introduce the guest speaker, please. Okay, if Hemant is indisposed, I'm just going to go ahead and do it in the interest of time. Welcome once again, Anand. Anand is well known to most of the people who are.
Hi, Vijay. Hemant is experiencing some technical difficulty in reconnecting.
Yeah. No
So he should
problem,
be back
Ramlan.
with
I'll
us in a
just
few
go
minutes.
ahead. Anand started his career with Sundaram Finance, where he spent a good 20 years, I think. And when he left them, he was vice president. He then joined Ernst & Young as a partner. He was there for a good 10 years. And then he decided to leave the corporate world for for reasons best known to him. And I think he has been lending his consultancy services and support to a great many organizations. Anand was also past chairman or president of the Indo-American Chamber. He's a consultant. He headed the tax advisory committee at the Madras Chamber. He's also sitting on the Chennai International Center, along with our member Prakash Chala. So without further waiting, may I now invite Anand? Are you ready to present, sir?
Yeah.
Thank you. All yours.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Hemant, Vijay, Christy, and others for inviting me to this BBG's monthly meeting. I'm extremely delighted to be part of this session today. In fact, when I did chat about this with Hemant, we, on mutual basis, negotiated the subject. And little did I realize that I will be really getting into a very tough terrain in discussing a subject which carries a title, Corporate Governance in Tough Times. Like a typical CA final student who prepares at the last minute, I started preparing for today's session today in the morning. And I Googled corporate governance in tough times. I expected a lot of listings, but I found only one listing on this subject titled Corporate Governance in Tough Times. And interestingly, this title was discussed in Canada in 2008. And that was the result of the financial crisis that the world witnessed 2008-2009. There was a very interesting discussion in Canada about how corporates deal with tough situations like that in 2008. And it was a round table of about 6-7 CEOs who got together. And the discussion summarized 3 essential data points on how governance has to be looked at in situations like we are looking at today. And the 3 data points were managing risks, safeguarding cash, and managing employees. If you fast track 2008 to 2020, and this is a very similar type of a crisis, not necessarily the financial crisis, but more to do with health, resulting in some sort of an economic downturn. You find these 3 data points very constant today. And I tried to unravel what this actually means in today's world. And what I could essentially do was to flip the order. And the order could be managing people, safeguarding cash, and managing risks. If you look at this scenario from March 2020 to November 2020, the whole scenario is changing, not necessarily for the worse, but for the better as the pandemic is behind us. And let us take 2 data points which are very important. The world economy, which is 80 trillion US dollars, is going to shrink by 5% in 2020. Indian economy, which is 2.9 trillion US dollar, is going to be shrink by 9%. So the whole GDP of the world is going to shrink. Indian GDP is also going to shrink. So what? What are the lessons that we are going to learn from this? There are very fascinating lessons which have been explained to all of us in several webinars that we listened to between March and November. In fact, in the last 6 months, I think collectively all of us would have listened to more webinars than we did in our entire life. For me, it is 60 years. For others, it is more, I don't know. But there are very interesting stories which unfolded in some of these webinars. Corporate boards today are spending more time on governance and risk than ever before. In fact, most discussions are now about how do we deal with risks. Pandemic is behind us, but what could be further risks that are going to confront us? How are we going to prepare the organization for risks? Today, there was a very interesting SMS going around And typically these type of SMS carry momentum very quickly. The SoftBank CEO of Japan has made an official statement that the next 2-3 months, the only item he is going to track is cash sitting on the balance sheet. Nothing else is going to track. Cash on the balance sheet. Last 3-4 board meetings of every companies today are discussing only liquidity, risk, and how much of cash you are carrying on your system. In fact, for the first time, corporate boards without any exception are dissecting debt equity ratio to the extent that they are going to textbooks to understand what is equity, what is reserves, what are the components of debt, and is the debt equity ideally should be 1:2 or 2:1 or 6:1 depending on the type of business that you are. So these are the learnings. Now, do we need a pandemic to tell us that the fundamentals of business have to be learned on this basis? The answer is an emphatic no. But yes, the pandemic has made us more aware of the risks which are inherent to any business. Another important learning that came because of these last 6 months experience is that boards are getting more vigilant, more active, more involved, and sometimes more hyperactive also. Now, is it good for organizations? The answer is yes and no. You can't have a hyperactive board sitting, breathing down the neck of the executive management on a day-to-day basis. That's not all. But boards which are really concerned, and because of the Zoom facility and all the facilities of tech that is before us, almost every day there is a call discussing this, discussing that. So it becomes more like a very involvement of the board in day-to-day affairs. So this is one phenomena which has gained momentum in the last 6 months. Boards are getting active. They want to know more. They want to advise more. And they want to get into the nitty-gritty of the corporate management itself. A vigilant board is required, but not necessarily a hyperactive board. But because of the pandemic situation, the executive management also decided to use the wisdom of the board on a more regular basis than they did earlier. The third lesson is about costs. And this is a very cliched discussion which happens in this country over a period of time. Cost cutting versus cost rationalization. And there's a very subtle distinction between the two. Instead of traveling by flight and you travel by train, it is cost cutting. It's a very oversimplified version of a cost cutting situation. You save some money and therefore you think you have reduced cost. That's cost cutting. But corporates today have learned the art of what is called cost rationalization, which essentially means that you try to prioritize where you want to spend, postpone some expenditure which are not immediately required, and then get into the nuts and bolts of what is needed to be spent today vis-a-vis what needed to be spent after 3 months, 6 months, as the case. Several companies in the Q2 results, if you have seen, made substantial savings because of cost rationalization, not necessarily because of cost cutting. And because we learned these lessons now, and the situation of the pandemic forced us to learn that lesson now, this will remain forever. So certain learnings of this crisis will be embedded forever because we have learned it forever. One could be this cost rationalization. The flip side of this is that some companies, and very interestingly, took the stand that in a time of crisis, it is better to bolster morale and courage and spend more also. And when I say spend more, it is not on the unnecessary expenditure, but on the capex. See, sometimes what happens, and there's an old saying which is relevant even now. Tough decisions are taken not when the going is bad, but when the going is good. Sometimes corporates ignore that message. In a time of crisis, you take tough decisions because you are forced to take those decisions. That's not really an analytical way of taking decisions because it's a forced decision. But when the going is good, you try to understand, you try to rationalize and take the tough decisions in a much more seamless manner. But today what has happened is some companies took this stand, and there are several examples. I don't want to name companies because it will then look, I'm ignoring some companies also, is that CapEx announcements came fast and quickly in time of crisis like this only to send a signal that we are here to bolster the morale and the overall image of the organization. This is another lesson that came. The fourth lesson, again relating to governance and the learnings on account of this particular pandemic, was wherever organizations had a historical reputation and brand associated with it, they survived the crisis much more easily than corporates which did not have the brand. Because customers, stakeholders, bankers, whoever dealing with the company, respect the brand of the company. And that's why they're dealing with the companies. And they know that in times of crisis like this, companies will protect the brand to the hilt and therefore honor the commitments to the stakeholders and employees. In fact, I am not tired of giving this example. In a board meeting, one independent director asked the question to the CFO, please give me the list of creditors which are outstanding over 30 days. The CFO came back and told the independent director, sir, I will give you the list of debtors that is more relevant for you because that is only telling you how much your money is due to the company. The director said, no, I don't want to see that. I want to know how much of money you owe to outsiders. Because timely settlement of dues is reputation management. Collecting your dues is working capital management. Companies are obsessed with working capital management. They don't care about reputation management. So brands and reputations which are built over a period of time can be destroyed if you don't settle your dues on time. And in some organizations, particularly in context like this that we are facing, they give a lot of importance to preserving the brand by settling the dues, whether it's an MSME dues or whether it's the regulatory dues or whatever. But situations may demand that you have to prioritize the way you settle dues, but it was a very huge learning. The last point, and then I will stop at that, probably discuss in the Q&A. The biggest learning according to me, and that's why I positioned this as the last learning, is what were the technology and IT related risks that corporate faced? Phenomenal risks. In fact, a lot of companies struggled to get their IT in place because of work from home. A lot of frauds took place. A lot of frauds are happening in the banking and financial services space because the way things are galloping on the technology side, corporates are finding it difficult to keep pace. An added dimension is that your X is working from this place, Y is working somewhere else, and everything is up there in the cloud. So we have a huge challenge of managing technology. But having said that, interestingly, you would have noticed that for the first time in the history of independent India, 73 years since 1947, the auditors of large companies completed the audit well in time without even visiting the client, without even visiting the factory. For the first time, stock taking on 31st March was not done, but the closing stock figure was there on the balance sheet. And still the balance sheet was true and fair. So which means that we have managed the crisis so efficiently, so much in a nimble-footed manner that it did not upset any of the other associated issues relating to disclosures, presenting matters to shareholders, all other governance issues to other stakeholders. So we managed it very well. So this is another level. So I will leave it with that. To summarize, all I want to say is there are some lessons which we learned in 2008 crisis, elsewhere because of the financial crisis, today because of the pandemic crisis. But some of which have to continue to remain because some of the similar crises can unfold later also. In fact, the SoftBank CEO is saying that who knows, we may have some other crisis, and therefore we need to build the war chest now, sufficient cash. That was again a very important learning for corporates. How much of war chest that you need to build on the balance sheet, how much of cash you need at any point of time, because suddenly something will happen, you have to discharge obligations. So these are some of the issues which corporate face from a governance standpoint in a tough situation like this. But in a tough situation, we become more resilient, we become stronger, and that is exactly what has happened, because you see the rebound happening in October, will continue to happen in November. Hopefully it will sustain over a period of time. Yes, we will shrink by whatever, 5%, 6%, it doesn't matter. As long as we've learned the lessons, we put all the building blocks in place, I think we should be very comfortable as we march along for the next financial year. I will stop with that. I thank you for the opportunity. If there are any questions, I will take it.
Thank you so much, Anand. Open for questions now. Anybody would like to raise any questions? Feel free, use the chat box or come online. So while we are waiting, sir, I will start with the first question to keep the momentum going. So one of the things you mentioned was the management of cash. Most MSME sector companies, even in good years, have always had the challenge of what they are supposed to receive versus what they are spending. In this pandemic, this is probably stretched even more. So a lot of businesses tell me they have taken accounts receivable in good faith because their customers need to collect. Do you see this um, bursting at some point in time for many of the smaller players, because they're very much dependent? They don't have deep pockets, deep reserves. So what do such companies do in these uncertain, difficult times?
This is a very tough question in the sense, yes, the small scale sector or the MSME sector are the worst. Because for them, the day-to-day management of the business itself is a challenge. And you need working capital to manage the business. So for them, there is nothing called a surplus cash which you can park on the balance sheet, because there's no surplus at all. It's all deficit. There are two aspects. One is the business model aspect and how much cash you require. If the business model itself is fraught with this type of a situation that you perennially you have to be in debt, you will have a tough job in trying to manage cash in the system. But what some companies are thinking of doing is, and it's not a one-size-fits-all type of a situation, you have to borrow, otherwise you can't do business. With only equity, you can't be doing business, whatever be the size of your business. So from your debt, you have to have a designated percentage. I don't know whether it's 2%, 5%, 10%, depending on your business cycle and the products in which you are dealing with. You necessarily have to create a war chest. Each company, depending on the industry, has to decide that war chest and keep it. This is one lesson which MSME have learned. They want to do it. The question is how to do it.
Thank you. Any questions, please? I'm sure a lot of us who are managing our own businesses would have faced a lot of challenges. So this is the right person to ask. I personally appreciate advice coming from a chartered accountant who has worked in business and industry, faced real world situations, and then offers advice versus somebody who runs a corporate and audit practice and then dishes out advice which may not fit the real world. This is the way I look at things, sir. Questions? So one other thing about corporate governance, since I'm waiting, many of the MSME companies are often promoted by family members or extended family group members. Succession planning has always been a challenge. Do you see this continuing to be a challenge as we move from this crisis to maybe the next year, next business year?
Succession planning has always been a challenge with or without a crisis like this. And that is largely because family companies, essentially, as the family keeps expanding and growing, there is a limited leeway or headway available to accommodate everybody on even terms. This is the real challenge, unless you have multiple companies. So then the question is, how many of them would like to continue in family business? How many of them do not want to continue in family business? But still, the succession plan has to be put in place. See, what has happened in the last few years is that, and I'm not talking about evolved third generation, fourth generation companies. Even second generation companies are now thinking of having some sort of a documented, regimented family council document in place, which will ensure that the succession happens through a mechanism which is well laid out in terms of who is to do what, who is to continue, who will not continue, and so on and so forth. It may work, may not work, but at least the thinking is that let's put something in writing so that tomorrow we don't leave everything at the last minute. This is one approach companies are taking. But the world average is that family businesses beyond third generation is a struggle. The fourth generation invariably looks at splitting the family business or whatever it is. 3 generations is the average longevity of a family business. But yes, succession is a challenge. I don't think because of this crisis, it's going to force anything. Evolved organizations, evolved family business want to do a proper succession planning approach for the future. Some companies prefer to wait and watch. We will cross the bridge when we come to it approach.
I have another question. So you were in an industry that financed two-wheelers, vehicles, if I'm not mistaken. So one of the recent statements that came out from Tamil Nadu government is they wanted to review and restructure the industrial enterprise statutory board that they have. It has been caught warped in a old way of functioning. One of the major issues has been how to structure yourself to attract funds. Because one of the challenges industry across, especially manufacturing, faces is the inflow of funds, inflow of investors, confidence building measures. How do you see this going forward? Because unless we get all the dots linked and working in tandem, we will continue to face challenges even after this pandemic.
You mean investment up to the state, or for the company, or for the state?
First state, and then because the state is encouraging manufacturing sector to play out, they're encouraging more players to come in. Of course, ease of doing business is one of the key criteria always, But I'm just talking about two things. One is the ease of doing business. The one is the ability to attract funds that will bring promoters to play out in spaces like manufacturing, as opposed to say IT services and digital play services.
Manufacturing has always, manufacturing constitutes 17% of GDP, 17%. And it provides employment beyond comprehension. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's the third largest employer apart from agriculture and railways. Now, for manufacturing to provide the right impetus to the states, states have to open the window in a proper manner. Tamil Nadu is doing its bit. They are very serious about improving the investment in manufacturing, and a lot of initiatives which have happened in the last few months are directionally in the proper manner. Let me put it that way. And the incentives also today are linked in such a manner that people want to invest in a state where more than the incentive, it is the stability of the incentive which is more important. And Tamil Nadu seems to adopt that approach. This is at the state level. Now, for companies to look at manufacturing, if you take Tamil Nadu, largely it is automobile. It has been a hub of automobile for many, many years now. And the auto components industry has grown over a period of time. For them, the challenges is more on technology now. In fact, day before yesterday, Hindu carried a brilliant article about how technology is upsetting the whole manufacturing bandwagon itself. The whole interplay between technology and manufacturing. So the challenges of manufacturing are disruptions because of technology inroads. And because of that, whether, for example, electric vehicles, the threat of electric vehicle and its whole issue around how do you want to invest in manufacturing, because EVs are going to come in the next few years or whatever it is. So this constant challenge of staying in the game because of these changes is what is posing challenge for manufacturing. But yes, manufacturing will be one of the mainstay of the Indian economy. It has to be. And the government is also coming out with a roadmap on a long-term basis for manufacturing to sustain. A lot of companies are quite bullish on manufacturing, but it requires support from center, state, and all the institutions to provide the right lubricant to ensure that manufacturing progresses.
So a related question, sir. We find in this pandemic, banking and financial services, the requirement for them to restructure themselves in order to be pro-business. Do you see that in the horizon? Do you see that change?
See, the banks and non-banks, it's a very large subject. In fact, I have been advocating what is called a long-term financial services roadmap. See, today what is happening, the banking industry is struggling on a day-to-day basis. And today, when we talk about banking industry, we are really talking about non-performing assets management. Lending, unable to collect, and therefore non-performing assets. That's been the bane of the banking industry now for several years. But from a policy prescription standpoint, what we need now, and UK has it, Singapore has it in some form or shape. What we need is a stable, long-term 5-year roadmap for the financial services sector. When I say financial services, I mean banking, non-banking, mutual funds, and insurance. Mutual funds and insurance are less penetrated, but banking and non-banking are widely penetrated. But we need a stability roadmap for the next 5 years without too much of chopping and changing. If we get that in place and get the capital structure properly in place, then along with a robust manufacturing plan to succeed, you need the financial services to be a catalyst to the manufacturing agenda. If both work in tandem for the next 5 years, we will have the growth momentum automatically built into the system.
Thank you, sir.
Vijay, can I just interject?
Sure.
Anand, this is Christy Cherry, and I think we have met, but I wanted to ask you very frankly about this whole thing about the ease of doing business. Because I've been in India, I've worked here in India, and maybe I'm used to it. But let me be absolutely frank that I am not comfortable with recommending investors to come to India. As a person trying to encourage UK people to come into India, I have completely changed my mind. India is a very difficult place to do business compared to many other places. I don't know if this is the right position to take, but I find it very, very difficult dealing with the bribery. You're paying everybody everywhere. It's probably not the right thing to say today, but this is one of the big problems we're faced with. Getting approvals is still a very, very big problem. The Prime Minister can talk all sorts of stuff, but in the end of the day, the thing is, India is a very difficult place to run a business. Can you just pass one or two comments of yours?
Now, you have hit the nail on the head, Christy. I don't think anybody present here is going to argue anything different from what you are saying. See, but having said that, we have to make it happen. It is what it is, right? I mean, we have lived with this for 73 years. Certain things have changed, certain things have not changed. We can make a few changes here and there, but yes, it is quite tough to do business in India. And today, in fact, I was talking to Mr. P.S. Raghavan is here. I had a chat with him today. Till our generation, we could go to a government office and stand there for 3 hours for an approval, come what may. But the next generation, they get to get out of the house even to buy a glass of milk. It's all ordered on Swiggy. Right? So they don't want to even venture out. So where is the question of them going to a registrar office or a government office to do? Things are going to change. But to start a business and the single window business is exactly where the problem is. We say single window, but there are 23 approvals in a single window. It doesn't mean it's single window, right? No. But the solution is not from the top, it has to come from the bottom. And how do we make it happen from the bottom? I'll give you a very interesting story. And I think I flashed it across some groups. I don't know whether this group got it. There's a very interesting leader of a panchayat in Nagapatnam. Nagapatnam is about down south. And this guy, youngster, got elected by the citizens of Nagapattinam in a small village. The population of the village is about 4,000. I said, what are you? You're a youngster, yeah? You're MBA from Coimbatore, bright guy. Why you became leader of Panchayat? The citizens want me to be leader of the Panchayat. And what are you doing? He says, every day I'm attending to all the small things, exactly what Christy mentioned. What every citizen wants, what approval he wants, what paperwork he has to do. He goes door to door and ensures that every citizen of that village needs are met. But what struck me more about this guy, and we actually got him on a webinar and he spoke last week. This guy prepares an income and expenditure statement of that village. Transparency, he goes door to door and explains what he has done in respect of that village, what is earned, what is spent, what is the balance, and asks the citizens to contribute to the welfare of the village. This is where it has to start. This is where it has to start. If we have 12,000 panchayats in Tamil Nadu and 250,000 panchayats in the country, and it starts from a small village like that, the entire process of ease of doing business and ease of conducting your life will become much easier. The problem of last 73 years, we want to push everything from the top to the bottom. It doesn't work. It has to come bottoms up.
Anand, can you put this out to us? We'd like to actually circulate this properly, this little story of yours.
Yeah, Subramanian is his name. It came in Indian Express about a fortnight back. It was a front page story in Indian Express, and I just took the phone and called this guy, Subramanian. He came on the line. I said, I wanted to talk to a group of 30 people. He did that. Very interesting.
Lovely. Very good. Really
I'll circulate it. No problem.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anand. Anand, one of the concerns is just following on Christy, and then I'll just end. Because of these sentiments and because of these challenges and difficulties, a lot of young ones who are getting into startups are looking at the digital space because they see fewer barriers to entry and they operate in a very different environment. The way their businesses are valued and the way they are able to garner funds are all very different. But if this continues, this is going to be a very skewed services space, not necessarily providing the jobs that this country needs. We have a huge, every year we are producing so many people, they all need jobs. So where do you see this playing out?
See, actually, I wanted to address this issue slightly differently, but this is a paradox and you brought it out very nicely. See, the paradox today is we have a lot of money coming in as equity. In fact, a lot of investors want to invest, as you rightly said, in the services sector. Because for them, this manufacturing is dicey. How long do I wait? 12 years, 14 years for return? They want return in 5, 7 years, whatever. So gunpowder is available in plenty. When I say gunpowder, the equity capital is available. And youngsters with several startups, and we have representatives from Bangalore here, and she will confirm what I'm saying is free road in Bangalore now is bristling with startups getting money from this fund, that fund, and all that. Good for them because they're getting money which 20 years back it was absolutely impossible to even aspire for, but you're getting money now on the table. The question is, what do you do with the money? You have to have a good business, good services product, whatever IT related services, but deliver. You have to deliver finally results. And statistically, and I hope the number increases, out of every 10 startups, 3 succeed and 7 fade away. We have got to get the number right as we move along, right? But it's good. At least people are getting innovative, and the new generation. In fact, elaborate on the example of financiers. The good old days, financiers beyond 3 generations, they were not able to continue. Today, if you find some of the vehicle financiers, even second generation, they are saying they are disgusted with financing. Who will lend, who will collect, all the rigmarole of repossession and all that. So they want to get into different areas of business. So businesses are getting completely transformed. They are getting different in terms of its coverage and scope. But money is coming in. I think what we need is a calibrated, sustained approach of making some of these businesses succeed in a very methodical fashion. This is where they require support, guidance, mentoring, whatever you call it. A lot of large industry groups are mentoring small startups, which is a good sign today, but we need to persist.
All right, thank you. May I now invite, thank you so much, Anand. It's a very complex subject, but you have given us a lot of thought. May I now invite Jiva? Jiva, are you there, please? To deliver the vote of thanks.
I'm here, Vijay. Thank you very much.
Hi, Jiva, please come online. I heard you.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My apologies. I'm just trying to get my video started. I will probably continue without because there's some problem.
No,
with getting
just
my
carry
video
on. We
started.
can hear you. We can hear you.
Yes. So,
Jiva, we
thank
can't
you.
hear you clearly. Can you get your audio
Hello.
adjusted?
Am I better audible now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful. So thank you everyone for participating in this evening's proceedings. And of course, always thanks to our chairman for and Vijay for putting this 104th meeting together. I wanted to also thank Oliver. I joined in a bit late. I hope Oliver was there because I would like to thank Oliver irrespective for his support and the support from the DHC to the BBG. I did get some part of the discussions from Himani Topal on high tech, and very informative. I think several of our members and constituents require this kind of support and service. So I think that's a very interesting presentation. Anand, as always, needs no introduction. He has been a star speaker in very many forums. Anand, thank you for your insightful thoughts. Many comments, I'm sure, many questions, some of which may be discussed in a platform like this, some others where I'm sure people will reach out to you. And, there are many discussions happening around corporate governance, many discussions around cost cutting versus cost rationalization. And one of the classic examples is this very own group where, due to the COVID pandemic, we have moved to a virtual platform and cost rationalization has been implemented even in this organization. And therefore, the benefit flows to the members of the organization in reduced membership and so on and so forth. So we've seen cost rationalization in profitable entities and in non-profitable entities, even like the BBG. And of course, one has to clearly identify the distinction and not blindly proceed to look at a balance sheet and say, cut it by 30% overall. So that's not how it is supposed to be. Morale has to be kept in an organization. Reputation and trust have to be retained. So I'm sure that is something that's a key takeaway for all of us from this discussion. Of course, Christie's valid comments about the difficulties in doing business in India. We keep saying ease of doing business in India. In fact, it should actually be difficulties of doing business in India, and then keep a track of how much the difficulties reduce, because ease is yet to be ascertained or found so far. And I myself am a lawyer who helps a number of entities set up shop in India and also with entrepreneurs. And this is a topic for discussion pretty much in every boardroom as well when a new foray into India or a joint venture or a merger is envisaged in India. So thank you, Anand. Thanks, Vijay, for conducting this event, as always, emceeing us and seeing this through. Thanks to all the participants. And I think our e-networking follows. We will see you shortly over the year at the New Year's event. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.